swinging a drive, right field and deep. Back goes Aquino. It's got a chance. Gone. Get out the tape measure. Long gone.
Fly the W!
Cubs fans, it's time to fly the W with Dustin Rhodes and Paul Crawly Jean.
All right, Crawly, this is the Fly the W podcast, and it is episode 68. It is season number 4. We are happy to be part of the Blue Wire Network. Don't forget to listen, download, subscribe, and most importantly, review the podcast. You can follow all the socials. You'll see what I'm up to at Mully and Haw on X.
You can follow me at Crawly's Cubs on X, Blue Sky, TikTok, Crawly's Clubhouse on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Threads. You can email us at crawlysclubhouse@gmail.com. And Dustin, the winter meetings are wrapping up in Orlando, Florida. We saw a couple big moves happen the last couple days, but we also had a chance to hear from Jed Hoyer and skipper Craig Counsell.
Yeah, lots of talking, not as much action, I guess, at least not action where there's actually going to be a press release signed and a press conference about these players. But there's plenty of talking. We heard from Carter Hawkins, we've heard from Jed Hoyer, we heard from the skipper. So we've heard a lot of talking, but not a whole lot of action, except for the one on paper pretty decent reliever they signed.
Yeah, and before the winter meeting started, last time we talked, one of the Cubs free agent targets was taken off the board when Dylan Cease signed with the Blue Jays. So, when we talk about the winter meeting and Jed's effort to add a frontline starter, well, if you were on Twitter last Saturday, got a little bit crazy. I'm not going to lie to you. You sit there and you're, when the winter meetings come, you're on your phone, you're checking, notifications are on, and all of a sudden Bob Nightingale lets one drop, right? Chicago Cubs are close to finalizing an agreement with free agent starter Zach Gallen on a multi-year deal that will pay him an average of $22 million a year.
And see, when it gets to that point, right? Like the first part of the tweet is okay. Like, you get excited, but it's okay. But when you start getting into the particulars, right? When you've got years and money and total value, now you're talking like basically all the guy needs to do is pass a physical and it's a done deal.
Right. It's sounding close to done. And then Jeff Passan says, nope. And minutes later, Bob Nightingale.
Not so fast, my friend. Yeah.
Right. So Nightingale's got to go back and say the Cubs are hopeful, in all caps, hopeful of finalizing an agreement with free agent Zach Gallen on a multi-year deal. Deal is not done.
Well, then it turned out that he is getting married or just got married or is on the honeymoon.
Well, he was getting married. Yeah. Bruce Levine broke that story, Bruce.
Right.
And, you're sitting there and the guy has no idea. His phone's probably blowing up.
Oh, right.
And I got to ask though, when that came up, when it first came up before the update and before the Passan says no, were you excited about the idea of Zach Gallen?
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. I can get on board with that. And I know we're going to talk about it more on the podcast, but because you're asking this question when you're asking it, I'm more on board with that than I am with this, in my opinion, as a fan, right? I'm not a scout. I'm a fan. Than this unknown in the Japanese pitcher.
Am I? Yeah.
No, I'm saying if those were my options as a Cubs fan, if those are my two options, I'll roll the dice with Zach Gallen.
That's interesting. Now, Zach is one of the guys that the Cubs are targeting. Mark Feinsand had an article on MLB.com before the winter meetings talking about some of the frontline starters. And we talked about him, right? That the Cubs would be interested in Gallen if the price, and he said, if the price tag, quote, on starters like Suarez, Ranger Suarez, Tassino, Amai, and Ranger Valdez feel too high. So kind of like, it sounds like Gallen's more of the second tier if you can't get one of the top tier guys right there.
Mm-hmm. And that's where he's got to be, right after the atrocious year he had last year. And obviously every year you get a year older, right? And then you have to worry about the potential missed year. So everybody's going to still get older, even if they're not going to play baseball, you're still going to get older. So these are all things that have to be in consideration, I think.
Yeah, and so Feinsand had Cubs in on 4 of the top 5 free agent starters left on the board. So, in his article, he's talking about where these guys are fitting and who's talking. And he said about Ranger Suarez, quote, a number of clubs have been attached to Ranger Suarez in recent weeks, with sources tapping the Astros, Cubs, and Orioles as the most serious threat to sign him away from the Phillies. So when we looked at the Athletic earlier, when we were looking, Dustin, at starters, he was ranked number 7 on the Athletic top 50 free agents and was the second highest ranking pitcher. Now, the Cubs, again, during the winter meetings, you heard more. Feinstein and John Heyman talked about your guy right here, about Amai, and about the possibility of him coming here. Cubs are among many teams showing interest in star Japanese right-hander Tatsuya Amai. Cubs have done well in the Japanese market, Imanaga, Suzuki, etc. You know, I know there is an unknown factor when it comes to Amai, but just kind of looking at how some of these Japanese pitchers have come over and done a good job, and, you know, looking at how, you know, what he throws with some heat, even though he's not a big guy. You know, when I think of, like, you know, Tim Lincecum, you know, like a little body, but through some pretty wicked stuff. But for me, you know, I wonder, because I know Amai said he wanted to go to a team without other Japanese players. It was kind of why he didn't want to go to the Dodgers. I think he makes his own way, but, you know, I don't know. Who knows? You know, Suzuki and Shota Imanaga are not going to be with the Cubs after 2026, most likely. So maybe he just played with them for a year. I don't know.
Right. Great points. We'll have to wait and see. I like Zach. I mean, let's put it this way. I hated watching Zach Gallen go against the Cubs. He seemed to do really, really well against them. When his stuff is working, he is a swing and miss guy, right? Something that the staff is kind of lacking at the moment. And I know we're going to get into it more as we start sampling some of the audio that's gone on, right? We're going to give our listeners that audio and give them our opinions of that audio. But, you know, you have to kind of try to put into the Craig Counsell decoder and the GM decoder and the president decoder. But what's going on with Justin Steele? We know he won't make the opening day start, but does he make a start in May? Is he not making a start till June? He will make it, you know, his over-under starts before the All-Star break is 2.5. You know, which one is it? And then Craig's like, don't ask me again until we get to spring training. Don't ask me again.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. That puts a little bit of, a little concern when he's like, don't ask me again until we get to spring training.
I think with arm injuries and some of the things that you're dealing with, it's tough to figure out how guys bounce back. I've seen video of Steele already throwing on flat ground. What does that mean? I don't know. And a lot of
it means you saw a video of him throwing on flat ground,
right? You know, how far
he
along?
Can throw a baseball. We can throw a baseball, right?
Right. How far along is he in the process? And you don't want to rush him. And you think that, again, Jed and Craig have always talked about wanting to have more outgetters, more arms, that you can never have enough. Guys get injured. We know how that goes. But I mean, I'm operating to me that I don't think Justin Steele's back until June, early June.
Wow.
Is what I'm now. I don't know anything like that. I'm just saying, just in general, as far as him being a starter, that you could just roll out there and not worry about anything, right? Not saying, okay, we're going to have you go 3 innings or we're going to have you go 40 pitches. Like, just a guy that can just go out and start, right? You don't do that with Jameson Taillon. You don't have a certain innings or pitch number. You just let him go and see what happens, right? I don't think that's going to happen with Justin Steele, whether he comes back in April or May or June or whatever. I don't think that happens. I don't think he just comes out. You know, you're not going to be able to rely on him to go, you know, 80, 90 pitches, 6-7 innings. I think you're going to have to be careful on how you kind of roll this out. That's why it's, you know, you do have the amount of swingman that you're going to have in this lineup, whether it's Javier Assad, whether it's Colin Ray. Those type of arms are guys that, you know, I was surprised to see Michael Soroka, who came in the trade deadline. He is not going to be back with the Cubs. He signed elsewhere. Yep. And so that kind of surprised me, because he's again, another one of those guys that can make a difference and kind of do both things. Right. And so I'm not saying that you're not going to be able to use him. You're just going to have to be more careful with Justin Steele, as opposed to him being an opening day starter or something to that degree, right?
Yeah, but with all due respect, I mean, you know, how many pitchers take, you know, outside of maybe one for each team, you mentioned a number of innings pitched, Crawly, and you mentioned a pitch count. Nobody does what you said really anymore, right? I mean, nobody throws that many pitches. Nobody throws that long anymore. I mean, it's just, that's today's MLB, right? I mean, it's basically, the thing we like to make fun of during the regular season, at least I really like to make fun of, the quality start, right? And basically it's like, well, if he gets us to the quality start, that's like a win. Like that's a win. And a quality start is like nothing back in the, 70s and 80s. That would be laughable what they consider a quality start these days. So I'm just saying, like, I agree that Justin Steele's not ready for 8 innings and 100 pitches, but I don't know that he's ever going to be ready for 8 innings and 100 pitches because nobody does that anymore. That's all I'm saying.
I guess
that's what I'm trying to say.
Right. What you have is you have something in mind as the guys going out there, right? Whether it's Jameson Tyone or Matthew Boyle, you have a general idea, but that can change as the game's going on. If the guy's getting blown up in the second, you pull him. If the guy's sitting there rolling, he's, Kyle Hendricks, was the king of doing those. And of course it's, Maddox, a complete game with less than 100 pitches is called Maddox, but if a guy is rolling, sometimes you just let them roll and you're not worried about it.
Right. Absolutely.
Where I think that with Justin Steele, regardless of what happens his first start out, you don't see him go more than 3 innings. Whether he he only throws 20 pitches or whether he throws 60, I think there's gonna be a certain point where
I guess what I'm saying is that I would hope, and I don't disagree with the numbers that you're kind of laying out there, right? I don't at all. But I would hope if we're talking about 3 innings and 65 pitches, let's say, I would hope that doesn't take till June. Like I would hope if that's where the bar is set, Crawly, I would hope that is May 1st.
Okay.
Like that seems like those seem like May 1st hurdles to me, not June 1st.
Right. And when you talk about what Craig doesn't want to talk about it, I mean, these are things that you know how it goes. It's all of a sudden, remember last spring training when you had Javier Assad with the oblique and it looked like, oh, he's getting ready. Oh, no, he's not. So it's kind of like, you don't know how his body is going to react. There's going to be different tests that he's going to have to kind of meet. And if he doesn't, if his body reacts good, if something feels funky, then you're taking 3 steps back. So you're not going to sit there and say, okay, well, I think this, I think that. And then all of a sudden when it doesn't happen, you're disappointed. They're going to kind of watch it and hopefully it's good. One more starter that the Cubs Mark Feinstein had the Cubs looking at was Michael King, who we talked about. He has the Yankees, Cubs, Mets, and Tigers as the most interested clubs out of all the top 5 starters on the Athletic top 50. The only one it doesn't seem like the Cubs are in the mix for is Framber Valdez. Like no mention of him at all possibly going to the Cubs.
No. Yeah. Why did I think Framber Valdez was getting close with the Mets?
There's been a lot of talk, but not with the Cubs. And I don't know if that's because of the behavior issue that he had last year, or kind of the bad second half, but not seems to be interested. Now, Dustin, as far as pitchers are concerned, one of the big things we saw was we actually saw a big bat come off the market, one that broke Cub fans' hearts, those that were hoping for a reunion with World Series hero Kyle Schwarber, possibly coming back to the friendly confines, but alas, Kyle will instead be returning to Philly on a 5-year, $150 million deal. That is an average annual value of $30 million a year. Not bad if you can get the work, Dustin.
Mm-hmm. Good for him. I'm happy for him. I don't know the way it sounded. I mean, the Cubs didn't even talk to him. They knew he wasn't coming back because of how things ended, right? I mean, they said the Pirates and the Reds were teams. The Orioles supposedly laid out a big deal, and we'll talk about the Orioles in a few minutes. They've made a move, but Cubs the Cubs weren't talking to him.
I don't see where he would have fit on this team. I understand people wanting him to come back.
He wouldn't have fit as the DH.
I think that the thing about Schwarber is again, he doesn't hit for average and he strikes out a lot and he can go on hot and cold streaks. Mm-hmm. I just feel like the kind of guy you want is the kind of guy you're letting walk in Kyle Tucker. Now I know people.
That's interesting too. That's something interesting because as a couple of these guys start landing, I just wonder where Kyle Tucker fits. Who's paying Kyle Tucker right now? Is he going back to Houston? Is he going back to Houston? I mean, is Toronto really going all in?
The Yankees. Yankees could be.
I think Bellinger goes back to the Yankees. Sure, if Bellinger goes somewhere else, then of course the Yankees are involved. But I mean, you think if he couldn't handle Chicago, he's going to get spit out in New York.
Yeah, but in New York, he's not the guy. If he goes to the Dodgers, he's not the guy.
I know, I understand that, but
Toronto,
based on his contract, in Toronto would be perfect landing spot for him. Yeah. But in New York, even when you're not the guy, there's a lot of eyes on you. Okay, yeah. A lot of eyes on you, and if you're not performing, here's the thing: it's not about being the guy. Okay, it's not about being the guy. It's about the fact that he isn't going to potentially live up to the contract.
Yeah. That's always the thing, and it is going to be heavy, and so with Schwarber signing that big deal, that's what people think the dominoes are going to start to fall with others. You saw today, Pete Alonso. I mean, the AL East.
Right, there you go. There's the money. The Orioles. So the Orioles couldn't get Kyle Schwarber, so then they went and got Pete Alonso.
Right, and it looked like the Reds were the closest. They were at 5 years as well. And so I think honestly, all things considered, Schwarber probably has his heart in Philly, but I don't think the Cubs were angling to get him back. Not that he wouldn't talk. If the Cubs would have said 5 years, 155, maybe he might have. I have no idea. I just don't think that that's what the Cubs were looking for.
I think it would have had to have gotten to 200 maybe or something, and that would have been dumb, I think, by the Cubs. But I mean, I think it would have had to been something that crazy. I do give Kyle Schwarber credit, though. It seems like he wants to stay in a place where he thinks he might be able to win again. And, Philly might be that place. It's kind of now or never for that team.
Yeah. And the question on the Cubs' mind, since they were, since losing Game 5 of the NLDS in Milwaukee, is how do you replace the offensive production of Kyle Tucker when he does sign for a different team? Here's what Jed had to say about that.
Would you say there's like an ongoing discussion about whether you have enough offense if Tucker doesn't return internally? That is still a conversation you're having, or are you convinced one way or the other?
I think you're always discussing that because, by definition, you're everyone that performed well isn't guaranteed to perform the same way, as last year. And the young players we're counting on, Pete took a big step forward in the first half of last year, and that's the question of whether we could be relying on a bunch of young hitters, and I think there's some with that there's some uncertainty. So I think you're always having that discussion. I mean, listen, I'm very confident in our defense. I think that's probably the one area that I feel like is I go to bed at night knowing we have a really good defense if healthy. But other than that, I think that you're constantly trying to. You never think you have enough pitching. I think that's a mistake. And then with offense, I think that there's some volatility to some of our performance that that I think about.
But it could be good volatility too.
But absolutely,
Matt Shaw takes a big
exactly.
Owen Casey, whoever.
Yeah.
So, Dustin, we know going into it that Ian, Happ, PCA, and Seiya Suzuki are outfielders. Okay, Ian and Seiya, no trade clauses. They're going nowhere. PCA, amazing defender. He's not going anywhere.
Well, let's stop for a second. Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe you're going to get there. Sorry if I cut you off, but how do you feel about Seiya playing 100 games in right field or more?
It looked like he did fine when Kyle Tucker was out last year. I didn't see anything. I would say out of every part of Kyle Tucker's game, I thought the base running was fantastic. I thought the bat was great when he was healthy. The offense I was underwhelmed by, and I would say that as far as Seiya, he's okay. He's not great. He's not a Gold Glover by any means. But I don't think it hurts him that bad. We'll see what happens with that. But again, he's not going anywhere. And so I wouldn't say if you're doing some sort of combination at DH of Owen Casey, Moises Ballesteros, I don't know how it all works out, but I don't know if, again, Owen Casey is that much of an upgrade over Seiya as well.
Okay.
And so, Bush at first, and Dansby is the only Cubs position player signed to a long-term deal. So, Dustin, where are you going to be able to add offense? That's the question. And two names that came up in Orlando, as far as the Cubs are concerned, are both third basemen. We know the Cubs were kicking the tires in 2025, but came up short to the Red Sox when it came to Alex Bregman. But Robert Murray reported out of the meetings that talking about Zoom meetings that Alex Bregman had with different teams. So Robert Murray says the Cubs met with Alex Bregman via Zoom a few weeks ago. Sources said he's had a Zoom meeting with several teams this winter. All right. Not only that, though, Dustin, last year the Cubs made a 4-year, $115 million offer that included opt-outs after the second and third season. Signed with the Red Sox 3 years, $120 million contract with an opt-out after the first, right? But he hit 273, 360, 462 with 18 home runs and 62 RBIs. Now, he missed some games because of injury, but Dustin, when you look at that slash line, that's as opposed to what Kyle Schwarber gives you, that's the slash line I'm looking for right there. 273, 360, 462. So if he would have played, a full season, would he have had 22 to 27 home runs, right? Close to 30 home runs. And if he would have had more RBIs, I think that would have been interesting. But he's not the only third baseman that the Cubs were attached to in the winter meetings. Also, you take a look at this one. Eugenio Suarez, Francis Romero. The Cubs continue to explore the third base market in free agency, and Eugenio Suarez is one of the names to watch in the coming days, according to multiple sources. Now, I know Jameson Tyone is all about getting Eugenio Suarez on the Cubs because Eugenio Suarez absolutely destroys JMO, absolutely has his number. Yeah. But Dustin, other than having the benefit of having Pat Hughes getting to say Eugenio Suarez for 160 games, I mean, how excited if you had your choice there between Alex Bregman and Eugenio Suarez? Eugenio Suarez is another guy that has a lot of swing and miss, but when he hits, ball go far.
Ball go real far, right?
49 home runs last year.
Mm-hmm.
Good third baseman right there. But what are you looking to spend on either Bregman? Again, 115 last year for Bregman didn't cut it. And I don't know what Eugenio Suarez is going to want. He played with the D-backs and then got traded to the Mariners. But out of those two, if you were to say, I'm looking for this guy, who are you looking at between the two?
No, now you want to how much of the defense we got to take into consideration, right?
He's going to be a third baseman.
Or is he going to be like a third baseman / DH guy? I'm saying, what are you doing? What are you doing with Matt Shaw if you bring one of these guys in?
Good question.
Matt Shaw going to the minors so he can get at bats, or is he going to be like the ultimate first guy off the bench and a defensive replacement and giving Nico a day off, who might give Dansby a day off, and you know what I mean? Like, so he's rotating through third, short, and second. That's what you kind of need to know. I think in Wrigley, Bregman, though, where Bregman goes, they win. If that matters, right? Where Bregman goes, they win. So
right.
That's a tough one.
You're also looking at leadership. That's the thing everyone talks about is the leadership that Bregman brings to a team. And you do have a lot of young players on this Cubs team.
You do.
And the question, I think Dansby's been mentioned as a leader, but you can never have too many. I guess you could, but having a leader like that in the clubhouse, that it'd be interesting. I mean, I think it's a tough choice. I would be very curious to see what Eugenio Suarez does if he's ever, I've seen what he's done to the Cubs in the past. What can he do if he got to play 81 home games at Wrigley Field?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at Alex Bregman's pull charts and stuff like that, boy, he would be those left field bleachers would be mighty inviting for him. So
really inviting.
It's tough, but you're talking about Matt Shaw, right? And Matt Shaw was a Gold Glove finalist at third. And after a demotion to the minors early on, he came back a better hitter. And so, with all this buzz, like you're saying, what's going to happen to Matt Shaw? And of course, they're going to ask Jed Hoyer. Jed Hoyer says, this is from Jesse Rogers, quote, "I've been surprised by the number of media reports that link us to different guys. There is zero lack of confidence in Matt. I would say the opposite. And when the Cubs were looking to add starting pitching at the trade deadline, the two names that came up over and over again were Matt Shaw and Cade Horton, in which Jed Hoyer said, no deal. Like, they're not getting thrown into a deal. That's what teams wanted. And so when you're talking about this, the question is what is he going to do? And I think the skipper kind of starts to give it away a little bit. Here is Craig Counsell about Matt Shaw's role in 2026.
I think Matt had a very good rookie season. And I think the reason you say that is because he made improvements, and as the season went on, I think he got better. We got a better offensive player in the second half. We got a very good offensive player in the second half. I think, we'd all agree defensively. I think he surprised everybody and made enormous progress as the season went on, to the point of borderline plus third baseman by the end of the season. Those are all great things. And so, Matt's going to play a big part in this team. There's no question he's going to have a big role and a big place on this team.
Can it be in multiple positions or third?
I mean, every season kind of brings out its new thing. We were very injury-free last year from a position player group, and that created a lot of continuity with guys playing the same position. A new season can change that. And guys that can play more than one position, in some years, Nico has played shortstop one year. He's played second base. So if a guy can play more than one position and you need it, great. It's another option.
So, Dustin, I don't think he was the one that kind of brought it up, as a lot of guys can do this. Does Matt Shaw, if they do get one of these big third basemen, whether it is Bregman, whether it is Suarez, I don't think Matt Shaw is going to go to the minors. I think the time for that was last year, to be honest. I think Matt Shaw, he's not going to get better at hitting sitting there watching. No. And so he's going to have to play every day. It's just, the question for me, I guess, is are you going to hurt his development if he's not in every day? And if you keep moving him around the diamond, that super utility role that was developed, that was Ben Zobrist's calling card, it's not for everybody. And I know they tried that with Christopher Morel. I'm not saying that Morel and Shaw are the same defensively, but I just think when you keep moving guys around and they can't get consistency, especially at the major league level, not great. So I don't know how this plays out. If you're telling me where can you add the more pop, I would say third base is your best answer. Now, Nico Hoerner, and I hate to say this, and I don't want people getting mad, I'm not advocating this. Nico Hoerner, careful. Like Ian Happ, like Seiya Suzuki, will no longer be under contract after the 2026 season, right? And so if you only have a year of Nico left, and I don't know if the Cubs, it's hard for me to imagine them not bringing him back, because he seems like the heartbeat of that team. You know what I mean? I think he's the most underrated player on the team, and I think he's the heartbeat of the team. But if you could sit there and maybe get, some good relievers, or some combination of a reliever, or if you can get a starter and throw Nico in the deal and move Shaw to second, would that be something they consider? Or if things aren't going great for the Cubs, maybe Nico, is packaged during the trade deadline.
Yeah, I think maybe if things weren't going well for the Cubs, maybe I'd go that route. I wouldn't go that route now. I mean, Crawly, he's the only guy that kind of sort of hits with runners in scoring position, right? He's the only guy who has timely hitting. So I don't think they're in a position to get rid of a guy who actually might drive somebody in with the runner in scoring position.
It'll be interesting to see what they do. We talked a little bit about Alonso. We talked a little bit about, obviously, Kyle Schwarber. Another big piece fell in the winter meetings. A bullpen piece was taken off the market during the winter meetings. Former Mets closer and Timmy Trumpet enthusiast Edwin Diaz signs a deal with who else? The Dodgers.
Mm-hmm. Cue up that music. I do love that music. I do. We played that quite a bit this morning on the Mullen and Haw show. I wonder if the Dodgers will just hire the trumpeter as well.
Yeah, might as well.
Maybe hire him to do all the games.
Yeah, and so when you take a look at this right here, you're looking at Edwin Diaz signs 3 years, $69 million from the Dodgers. Opt out of the final 2 years and $38 million of his Mets deal. So the closer gets another year and $31 million from the Dodgers. And so, it's just who aren't the Dodgers? Yes, they're going to get Timmy Trumpet as well. But Dustin, we obviously saw what big role the bullpen played for the Cubs last season. And we saw how managers use their bullpen extensively, when it came to the postseason, right? What an important thing they did. And so this idea of, can the Cubs actually start a season with a lockdown closer was brought up to Jed Hoyer.
But it sounds like you'd be open to maybe signing a kind of opening day closer, like an obvious solution for the ninth inning.
I wouldn't say we're against it. Just, like I said, we'll be in on the relief market. We're definitely talking to agents of relievers, but like I said, a lot depends on, usually end up having to be the high bid. So.
Yep, you're going to have to be the high bid, and we've seen the last 2 seasons Cubs closers not work out, with Hector Neris and Ryan Presley losing their roles and being DFA'd before the season even ended. Sounds like the Cubs really want that back end of the bullpen solidified at the start of the season. Usually the way the Cubs have gone about this, see what happens, see how it melds, and eventually it'll work itself out. I think they want to come out with a really, really tight bullpen. And, one of the names that have been brought up is Robert Suarez. You saw him when he was here in the NL wild card, right? With the Padres, and Francis Romero's reporting, hearing from the winter meetings, that the Cubs are still exploring the closer market with Robert Suarez as one of the ideal candidates. And Dustin, I know the Cubs were interested in him last season, right? And so when you look at Robert Suarez, he's a guy, 98.6 mile per hour fastball, 98.4 mile per hour sinker, and a 90 mile per hour changeup. That's what we've been advocating for a long time. A guy that uses that has that kind of velo. So I would be, and the other thing, Dustin, when you look at last year, he was 4-6 with a 2.97 ERA, 70 games. He had 40 saves, 69 and 2/3 innings pitched, 75 strikeouts, a 90 whip, walks, hits, innings pitched. So that a really good whip is 1.00. Anything underneath, now you're talking about an all-star. And so he's a guy that strikes out a lot of batters and doesn't walk a lot of batters, which I definitely would love to see in this Cubs bullpen. They already got Matten to pitch. You could have Matten pitch in the 8th. You could have Suarez pitch in the 9th. You got another guy with gas in Palencia, and hopefully Porter Hodge can get back to form. I think people are just kind of completely discounting him. I wouldn't do that just yet. And so, it's interesting because a lot of the moves, the Cubs are still interested in the same guys they were last year that we're talking about: Robert Suarez and Michael King and Dylan Cease and Alec Bregman. I don't know. I just hope after, now that these guys are heading home, hopefully Jed has something in place and a move's coming soon.
Well, Crawly, really quick before we move on, who led the Cubs in saves last year?
Brad Keller, right?
Was it Keller or was it Daniel Palencia?
We can take a look here, but I would say Brad Keller.
Okay, but or are we done with Daniel Palencia?
No.
Okay, I'm just saying, you mean his name's not being talked about a whole lot, and I like the guy a lot, and I just wonder where they are with him.
So you can never have too many guys that are throwing heat. So Daniel Palencia.
No, listen, I don't disagree. It just feels like he's not being talked about.
Well, he's already on your team. So you're what you're talking about is building up the bullpen.
So you're saying
working backwards
because he's there. Okay. He had 20. Right, so he had 22. He had 22. Yeah. Palencia had 22 last year.
Yeah, and he's great. He's just really young. And when you take a look at it, sometimes he can lose control. So we were talking about whip. His whip was 1.14. So he definitely walked more people than Roberto Suarez. So he can hit triple digits. But what I'm saying is that you want more out of your bullpen, and I want it on day one. Like if you had Palencia, Matten, and Suarez going 7, 8, 9, or flip Matten and Suarez, or Palencia, whatever you want to do on that. But I just want it to be 7, 8, 9 or lockdown, and we don't have to worry about it. It's not, we'll have other things to worry about. I just would like it to have that 7, 8, 9 lock and just adding length in that bullpen. And again, look at all these teams. I mean, it was rare. I mean, you saw some really amazing performances, but in general, most of these guys didn't go more than 3-4 innings when you got into the postseason.
Right. Right. Yes, indeed. You are listening to the Fly the W podcast. We are proud to be part of the Blue Wire Network. It is episode number 68 of season number 4. The Cubs 2025 winter meetings are wrapping up. And don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. 5-star reviews. We'll take it. Email us. We'll answer. Crawly's Clubhouse at gmail.com. Don't forget you can watch us. That's right, on the Crawly's Clubhouse YouTube page. If you listen to Inside the Clubhouse this weekend on 670 The Score, you heard Crane Kenny discussing the many changes coming to the Marquee Sports Network. In this segment, Crawly talks to Jeff Agris, deputy sports editor and media columnist for the Sun-Times, on the story he broke about the shakeup for the Cubs network. Take a listen. This is the Fly the W podcast, part of the Blue Wire Network, and this is episode 68 of season number 4. The 2025 winter meetings are wrapping up. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. You want to get to Crawly and I, you can email us. Crawly's Clubhouse, gmail.com. Don't forget, you can watch us on the Crawly's Clubhouse YouTube page. All right, Crawly, time to talk about some non-Cubs baseball news.
Yep. A lot of things were going on in the winter meetings, and we know on Sunday, the 2025 National Baseball Hall.
I lost your volume, Crawly. You're muted. Now you're not.
Anything I said?
No, you as soon as I threw it to you, you started talking, but your mic was muted. The mute was on the next to your name. The mute. Now you're live. I can hear you now. But as soon as you started talking, when I brought us back into the third segment, it went. I looked over. I couldn't hear you, and I looked by your name, and the mic was muted. Like if I go like this, now my mic's unmuted. On the screen, it showed it had a muted mic. So I would check. Maybe it's in the recording, but I could not hear you.
How about now?
I can hear you. Yep. But it also shows your mic is live on the bottom.
How it got knocked out. But what I was mentioning a little bit before, Dustin, is that the Baseball Hall of Fame, what do they call it now? They're calling it the 2025 National Baseball Hall of Fame Contemporary Baseball Era Committee player ballot was announced on Sunday. You needed a total of 12 votes. 75% were needed for induction into the Hall of Fame. And Dustin, when we looked at this list last time, you had Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Carlos Delgado, Jeff Kent, Don Mattingly, Dale Murphy, Gary Sheffield, and Fernando Valenzuela. And the winner was Jeff Kent. I got to say, Dustin, that was a little bit surprising to me.
Yeah. Again, what has Jeff Kent done since he has the most home runs for second baseman.
Yeah,
right? That's his kind of claim to fame.
Yeah.
Guy was kind of a douche, wasn't he? Like,
but see that
all the time.
You are hitting that exactly. That's exactly what he was. And did that have a reason why he didn't make it in with
I
the
know
Raiders?
I know it's not supposed to have a mean, right? I know
Right.
it's not supposed to be a thing, but I mean, even from like a guy watching him, like I wasn't really in sports talk radio like I am now, thankfully, when he was a thing, and he just came off as a douche. Like,
right. I'm not disagreeing with you, but again,
he made Barry Bonds look all like warm and fuzzy. Okay,
that's why.
That's how douchey he was.
Right. That's why though personal bias comes into this.
Of course it does.
And you know what? He received 14 of the 16 votes cast. He only needed 12. He got 14. What surprised me, Dustin, Carlos Delgado was second with 9. Don Mattingly only had 6. Dale Murphy 6. And when I look at this and we look at with Mattingly, he is one of those guys to me that I guess, again, this is the era that we came up watching baseball in, Dustin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Mattingly, 14 years with the Yankees, 6 All-Star games. He won a batting title, an MVP award.
He's 4 short. I think
led the AL
10 All-Stars. I think
right.
you need to dominate your position for a decade to be a Hall of Famer. He didn't. Now, who's his contemporary? Who, when he wasn't making the All-Star games in the late 80s or mid 80s, who was, do you remember off the top of your head, like who was making it, or who, if he made the All-Star team, let's say from 80 to 86, okay, who made it from 86 to 90?
Right.
Was it Mark McGwire with Oakland? You know what I mean? Like who was making it instead of him?
That's a good question. And again, he also had some injuries, but Dustin, when you're telling me
he was in New York, though, I mean, you would have thought that that would have helped him, not hurt him.
6 All-Star games, batting title, MVP award, led the AL in hits twice, 3 Silver Sluggers, 8 Golden Gloves, and a 307 lifetime hitter, and you're not a Hall of Famer?
Well, again, he hasn't done. I mean, here's the thing. I would like to hear from the guys that didn't vote him in. Why you didn't vote him in? He also a 9-time Gold Glover.
Yeah.
Okay, so a 6-time. So he's 84 to 89. Okay, so I'm going to look up while we're talking. I'm going to look up the 1991 AL All-Star first baseman, and I'm guessing it's Mark McGwire, off the top of my head. So is that who it's going to be?
And Dustin, you know how it is sometimes when you do this. Sometimes, remember when we used to do the Hall of Fame and you stuff the ballot and you have the pencil and paper and you'd put it in there. I'm just saying that to me,
so Cecil Fielder and Mark McGwire.
Right. These are guys. I would say that if you ask most
Chicks dig the long ball. These are guys that were hitting home runs back then.
Right.
That's one thing for a corner infielder in that era. Didn't hit a lot of home runs.
Yeah, I just, to me, he is someone
he's
that
right
I would
there.
say,
He's right there. I mean, he's in the Hall of very good, very, very good. Just don't know if he's in the Hall of Fame. But I mean, 9-time Gold Gloves. That's something that you gotta consider, right?
I just think that
contributor to a game, right? Also, he managed. He was a manager of the year in 2020. Managed the Blue Jays as well as the Dodgers. Dodgers and Marlins. Was a coach with the Yankees. So the guy's been around, the guy's been around the block. I'm not anti Don Mattingly. Don't get me wrong. It's been so long since he's been up and eligible. I'd love to hear, other than again, I have very high standards. I think I could take out a quarter of the guys in the Hall of Fame and leave them out. I mean, Harold Baines, if we get to the White Sox winning the MLB draft lottery, I know that's something we're going to talk about. I mean, Harold Baines is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that one though. That one, there was some behind the scenes chicanery going on.
But he got in on one. Harold also got in on one of these committees, right? He got in on a vote by one of these committees that we're talking about.
Well, Dustin, this is going to make you happy. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Gary Sheffield, And unfortunately, Fernando Valenzuela received less than 5 votes.
Yeah,
Won't
but
be
why,
eligible again
Fernando?
until 2031.
And again, what have they done to improve in 2031? Again, if the Giants are allowed to celebrate Barry Bonds as being a guy, okay, then baseball needs to recognize him. If either he's in or he's out. Is he in baseball or is he out of baseball? Because if he's involved in baseball, Crawly, he's a Hall of Famer. If you want to put him out, if you want to shun him, then shun him. But you're already late to that party.
Right.
Okay. I'm not, unfortunately, I'm going to disagree with you. You're wrong. I'm not happy that Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens didn't get these votes. Okay. And again, I would argue that I don't know that they needed steroids to make the Hall of Fame. Okay. They were motivated to use steroids. They were jealous of other people. I mean, who was it? Dan Duquette. Dan Duquette decided that Roger Clemens was washed up, was done. And all he did after that was what? Win a couple more Cy Youngs and World Series? Whoops. Yeah. You talk about a bad evaluator of talent or where somebody was in their career. So no, I'm not happy. And what's wrong with Fernando Valenzuela? What did he do?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Other than passing away. Come on.
I think when you look at Valenzuela and you look at his influence on the game and what he did and all of that, I thought because he passed away this year and because Don Mattingly was at the Blue Jays dugout and there was a lot of I thought it would help him. I thought it would help both of those guys, and it really didn't. But one guy that did not need help, Joe Buck, announced today as the 2026 Ford Frick Award winner. I know a lot of people don't like him. I like Joe Buck. I don't think he's as bad or half as bad as people tend to say. I think national guys.
And why Cub fans felt the way they did during the World Series. Okay. I get that. But what I'm telling you is if you sample other sports outside of the Cubs, and we are so fortunate in this town to have great broadcasters. We really are. We have got great broadcasters. And if you listen to enough national sports, once you get past the A and B team, and I'm talking about maybe the B team, Joe Buck, if you watch NFL games, you want Joe Buck and Troy Aikman on more than you want like CBS or Fox's second and third team, and maybe their first team as well. Joe Buck is an accomplished broadcaster. And if you're a fan of baseball and you watch the World Series, minus the Cubs, you're missing Joe Buck on those series. Joe, he's okay. Joe Davis, he's okay, but I don't feel like he's like the national voice of baseball.
I know that
a far, far superior broadcaster, in my opinion, than Joe Buck. Joe Davis seems like a really nice guy. Joe Davis is a really good broadcaster, but I don't know that he's like the best guy out there to do baseball.
And I will tell you that with Joe Buck, that was one of the biggest moments in baseball history was that final play, Mike Martinez hitting a chopper to Chris Bryant. I thought his call was fantastic.
Oh, right. But Crawly, come on, you know as many or more Cub fans than I do. And I'm sure there's guys that, you're going to go caroling with this Saturday, right?
Next Saturday, the 20th.
Next Saturday, the 20th. Yeah. That aren't the biggest Joe Buck guys.
No, I think that sometimes when you're a national guy, there are guys that you're just amazed at. And so I remember when the Cubs were in the postseason 15, 16, 17, it seemed like every time Clayton Kershaw and Joe Buck would gush over Clayton Kershaw. But again,
and it was hard when the Cubs were playing the Cardinals in the postseason and Joe Buck doing the games. I got it. I fell into that as well. Like but I feel like I went in with a prejudice, right? I went in thinking that he was anti-Cub because the Cardinals were playing. Okay. And then I felt like I was hearing something that I probably wasn't hearing.
Well, when you talk about Joe Buck and the Cardinals, what about his dad, Jack Buck, right? Never, this is from Jason Stark, never have a father and son been in the broadcasters wing of the Hall of Fame until now. So Joe Buck in 2026, Ford Frick Award winner. Jack Buck won it in 1987. But look at the names.
It's very cool. It's very cool.
Look at the names that he beat out. Brian Anderson, Skip Carey, Rene Cardenas, Gary Cohen, Jacques Duquet, Dwayne Kuiper, John Rooney, Dan Schulman, and John Sterling. I mean,
And
can't
I
really
would
go
say
wrong.
I would say half of those guys belong in.
100% agree with you. You know?
Right. I mean, they're all good broadcasters. But again, if we're talking about the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Very Good, Joe Buck is deserving, on that list. Let's get into the other team in town. We talked about it a little bit, but the White Sox winning the draft lottery, and they had the best opportunity because they've been the worst team. But how about the name of the guy they might draft? Rock Chalowski. I mean,
Rock Chalowski.
Could it sound any more south side of Chicago, right? Like, I mean, Brooks Boyer's already got like a Polish sausage with grilled onions and a spicy mustard ready to roll out, right?
All I got to say, Dustin, is they got to bring the super fans back on Saturday Night Live. Unfortunately, George Wendt passed away this year, but
Yes.
boy, oh boy. I mean, it almost seems like that is just made for those super fans. I mean,
oh my gosh. It just
all he needs is a Ditka mustache and he's there.
Gosh, it is so stereotypical. And then how about the Cubs? The Cubs are drafting Ryan Sandberg. They're drafting 23rd.
Yeah, let's hope that does a little something. It's I feel like the Cubs have done a great job with the draft the last few years. Let's see what they can do at 23. I have absolute faith in Dan Kantrovitz, and it should be fun. Speaking of fun, Dustin, the World Baseball Classic, we were talking about it. Yeah,
Matthew Boyd, right? We talked about Matthew Boyd's participation in our last episode, right?
This going on 20. Dustin, he just gets the big contract, and now he's going to be on Team USA. So when we take a look here, we got some more names in there. So we got going across left to right, Corbin Carroll, PCA, and Aaron Judge in the outfield. Around the horn, we got Gunnar Henderson at third. You got Bobby Witt, shortstop. Bryce Terang, still no Nico Love at second base. First base, we don't know. Nah, Bryce Terang.
Freddie Freeman, right? We need Freddie Freeman.
Freddie Freeman would be a good one. We'll see what happens.
Big hits and big moments.
And then he would join his teammate Will Smith, who's going to be catching, along with Cal Raleigh.
Cal Raleigh, yeah, that's a nice little 1-2 punch, right?
And how about Kyle Schwarber, DH? But these are not the only guys that are going to be on World Baseball Classic. I heard Aroldis Chapman is going to be with Team England because his family defected from Cuba.
I love this stuff, right? I mean,
defected from Cuba, went to Jamaica, and so technically now he has Jamaican citizenship, which is technically part of England. So that's there. But one thing that should excite Cub fans: Owen Casey to play in the World Baseball Classic for Team Canada. And Dustin, you and I talked last time about how I was uncomfortable with Matt Boyd. And the main reason is I get more nervous about pitchers than I do about position players in this. And I'm nervous about the amount of innings that were put on Boyd's arm last year. But if you're telling me Owen Casey is going to be playing Team Canada, I am 100% for that. Gets to kind of, be with his countrymen, gets to face top tier talent, gets to play every day. I think this is going to be last time in the World Baseball Classic. That's where he really kind of first made a name for himself, was playing for Team Canada. And so I'm excited that Owen's going to be able to kind of be out there, be a better player than he was when he originally started on it. And I'm curious to see what he does for Team Canada. So knowing you got Schwarber on there, you got PCA on there, you got Boyd, you got Owen Casey. Do you feel now, Dustin, that you're more inclined to watch the WBC, or were you all in just to begin with?
I mean, I don't know that I'd watch like all the early games, but I think when you get to like the elimination games, I think then I'm a little bit more all in, if you'd like to say.
I will tell you again, one of these days, I do want to go to Miami because they have the fans are crazy and the vibe is crazy. I would love to go to Miami and see like the Dominican and Puerto Rican and all those, the fan bases there just going crazy. I think that would be so much fun to do. Not going to happen this year, but in the future, maybe next WBC, I am going to make a extra effort to try to make it out there.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, Crawly, that is a wrap. Don't forget to download. Don't forget to review. Don't forget to subscribe. Drop us a message, 5-star reviews, all that stuff. You can watch us by subscribing to the Crawly's YouTube channel. Enjoy the Christmas holiday season. If we have some news, and if we don't have any news, we'll probably talk to you next week as well.
Sounds good. And let's hope that Jed Hoyer keeps those phone lines ringing. Go Cubs!
It's all over.